Trails in the Sky first chapter is out across multiple platforms, and we're going to be going over the PlayStation 5 reviews, talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 version, as I've put in a bit of time on that one, and discuss what's happening financially, because it looks like things are looking good for Falcom and Gung Ho with the sales so far. So when it comes to Metacritic, what's going on right now, I think things are very interesting, and it actually puts Trails in the Sky potentially in the Game of the Year conversation for many people out there. So right now there aren't a ton of reviews because review codes were kind of handled a bit weird, and it's a really long game to beat overall. But we do have some reviews. We've got about 11 or so on PlayStation 5 and about 8 or so on the PC platform. We're going to be going over the PS5 reviews, where the game has an overall universal acclaim, 91 Metacritic, all 11 positive, 0 negative reviews, 0 mixed reviews, with the lowest review so far being an 8.5 out of 10. So not bad. Let's go over just a couple of those reviews and hear what they have to say, because it makes things a lot more interesting for Game of the Year, at least for many people. So PlayStation Universe, 9.5 out of 10. It says there is something magical about the effort brought into the remake of Trails in the Sky. You can just see that it was made with love and care by people who understand just how special the original Trails in the Sky was. Trails in the Sky first chapter is a must-have for anyone who enjoyed the franchise and all the RPG lovers in the world. DualShockers, 9.5 out of 10, saying back in the day, Trails in the Sky hinged on its story and world building to make up for its other lacking characteristics. 20 years later, Trails in the Sky first chapter not only brings back the full heart of what made the original a classic, but it can now stand tall beside any other heavyweight JRPG. The visual presentation is beautiful, the mix between real-time and turn-based battles is a blast, and the quality of life additions adhere to present-day audiences. I can confidently say that Trails in the Sky first chapter is a quintessential JRPG that should be cherished by every fan of the genre. Awesome there. All right, let's get into some 9 out of 10s. Noisy Pixel, 9 out of 10, saying Trails in the Sky first chapter is a lovingly crafted remake that modernizes a beloved JRPG while preserving its emotional core, offering a vibrant, voice-acted journey through liberal with standout character dynamics, rebalanced combat, and welcome quality of life updates that make it the ideal starting point for newcomers and a heartfelt return for longtime fans. Push Square, 9 out of 10. Hey Poor Player, 9 out of 10. IGN France, 9 out of 10. All right, let's get into just a couple of the 8s, then we'll move on to some of the other interesting aspects of this, because once again, with this score right now, and if it holds, it makes things way more interesting for Game of the Year. So Game 8 with an 8.6 out of 10, and they say this 2025 remake of Trails in the Sky serves as a strong introduction to the Trails series. It has a more focused story and a cast you'll quickly grow to love, and that smaller scale makes Liberal feel incredibly cozy and vibrant. This results, though, to a much slower narrative, and many side quests can feel trivial in the grand scheme of things. Regardless, as a starting point for Zamoria's larger story, it succeeds at pulling you in and making you want to see what comes next. All right, good stuff there. Video Chums, 8.5 out of 10, and JuxVideo.com, 8.5 out of 10. So overall, scores are looking very good. Now, once again, we don't have any Switch 2 scores at this point. We don't have any original Nintendo Switch 1 scores. We only have just PC, which has 8 scores for an average of 88 overall. RPG Site gave it a 10 out of 10, and also the Outer Haven gave it a 10 out of 10 as well. GameSpot, which is one of the bigger review sites out there, they gave it an 8 out of 10 on the PC version, so I'll read that one, and it says, if first chapter is a bit lighter and less complex than its later iterations, then that is also in keeping in the spirit of the original game as the beginning of an epic saga. If you've always wanted to experience the wonder of the Trail series but didn't know where to start, then there are no excuses, as this faithful remake is the definitive way to begin that long and winding trail. Hopefully, the remake of its second chapter follows up swiftly. So it looks like that's already going to happen too, based off of stuff that has already kind of been teased by Falcom and everything. But yes, this looks like an incredibly solid remake overall. And if you start comparing it to the best games released this year, not including The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, which were re-released and obviously run better and look better, those are the top scoring games of the year. But if we exclude those, because you know reviewers and people are going to exclude those, so Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is at the top with a 93 Metascore, and then you have Blueprints with the 92 and Hollow Knight also with the 92, Hollow Knight Silksong. And then right after that, you've got 3 games all tied up with 91 scores: Split Fiction, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and Trails in the Sky First Chapter. But you also have to remember, Split Fiction and Donkey Kong Bonanza both have a lot more reviews at this point, and all have earned their Metacritic must-buy slapped-on rating there. That is when you have a 90 or above, but you need to have a certain amount of reviews. I think it's about maybe 14, 15, or 16 or so on any one platform before you get that. So it will get that, but we'll have to see if it goes up or down. But either way, this is a fantastic remake that a lot of people are enjoying and playing. Now let's get into what I have to say about it, because I've been playing for a few hours at this point on the Nintendo Switch 2 version. A lot of you guys have asked about that because there are some questions on how it runs. And I would say this: if you're playing the Switch 1 game on the Nintendo Switch 2 without the upgrade pack, you're going to get a solid, stable 60 FPS for the most part. But the game isn't going to look quite as good as the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of the game or the PlayStation 5 version or PC version. However, if you're playing the Switch 2 edition of the game, it doesn't quite run as good as it should. It's uncapped and it's not locked at the 60. You'll feel some hitches in some place when it comes to some of the bigger cities or other areas, or potentially maybe in the fields or combat. And I've been playing for a few hours and I haven't really gotten anything too bad overall. It feels like it's pretty okay, but once again, I don't have a frame rate machine hooked up or anything like that. And while I'm sensitive to frame rate drops, it just depends on where they are. I've been playing in the combat system, which is a hybrid system where you go from action to turn-based, and I haven't really felt anything too much, but I've had a lot of reports from a lot of users of mine that I do trust that know about these things that tell me it's not quite up to speed yet. So I would love to see a patch from Falcom. I think that they didn't have as much time to optimize it. That's why we got details on the Switch 2 edition of the game, like right down to the wire. It's not like there's any type of physical edition on Switch 2 or even a game key card. It's just the update that you can pay $1 for. So maybe that's also the reason why they didn't want to charge too much for it as well. So it's one of those things to where we'll have to kind of wait and see how the Switch 2 version stacks up. I think there's probably going to be people that do frame rate tests and all of that, but I'm playing it right now, and like I said, it's not too bad, but I can understand for some how it's not necessarily ideal overall, because the Switch 1 version running on Switch 2 runs at a more locked and stable when it comes to hitting that 60 FPS at least. So it's one of those things to where, yeah, we definitely need a patch for it, and I'm hoping that Falcom can get it done. So yeah, I think that Trails in the Sky overall, though, is a fantastic game. I've been playing it, getting into the combat system, and this is a great first place to start. So I'm very excited to kind of play more about it, and I'll give you guys my thoughts as I continue to play, because this is going to be a long burn for me overall. The game's long, so it's going to take me a while to beat this one. All right, let's talk about more stuff with Trails in the Sky First Chapter. It did move up to number 2 on the Switch 2 Best Sellers eShop chart. So it's pretty cool to see that, because right now it's kind of interesting to see some of the games kind of shuffle in and out, because it changes every 3 days. And remember, it's based off of revenue, not units sold. So it's interesting to see games that are lower priced make it up to number 1 and all of that. So right now, Trails in the Sky is right behind Donkey Kong Bonanza, and right in front of Hades 2. Silksong still number 4. Shout outs to Silksong. And then we got some EA Sports games with Madden, in addition to FC, the soccer game as well. So what you're seeing here with the Nintendo Switch 2 right away, especially different from the Nintendo Switch 1, is that you're going to see a lot of big third-party games actually make it into the top sales, potentially even be the top seller. Hades 2 was a top seller for a bit when it first came up for preload, but once again, it's based off of revenue. But Donkey Kong Bonanza, very interesting. That has been the quintessential game that people have been picking up since it launched in July, outside of Mario Kart World coming with the bundled system. But Donkey Kong Bonanza has been that driver for them overall when it comes to individually released game, not bundled. So very happy to see that, but also happy to see Trails in the Sky first chapter make it up to number 2. And I think that this could have some staying power as well, considering how much, or I would say how hyped it's been for a lot of people. Pretty much everyone knows about the Trails series or Legend of Heroes, but a lot of people are like, man, there's so many games, it's kind of complex, I don't want to jump into here or there or multiple games in. So this is the perfect game, especially for Nintendo fans looking for a great RPG. This is the perfect game to kind of bring into the mix right now, and I think that it's going to be a bestseller or a good seller potentially for the rest of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if the Switch 2 edition of the game ends up being the best selling version of the game, or obviously right up there with the PlayStation 5 version. I think it's going to do really well. But I'm really happy that Falcom finally said enough is enough. Let's just get people when it comes to this, because this was like a PSP game or whatever the case is, right? Like, it's an old game. So they finally said enough is enough. Let's get people on a modern system with this game, and let's get it out there so people can start here and go forward, because it seems like they're releasing new Legend of Heroes and Trails and all those in like that universe every single 1 year or so. There's like new announcements, or like every single 6 months there's new announcements. So yeah, I think that it was a very good idea, so people can just say, okay, let's hit the reset, let's start right here, but then also delivering a phenomenal game in the process as well. So I love that about Trails in the Sky first chapter. This is going to be very good for the Switch 2 going forward. And once again, kind of just solidifies what I was saying about the first year lineup, or more like the first calendar year, 6-month lineup of the Nintendo Switch 2 is much better than pretty much any other system that we've gotten from Nintendo overall. I think that it's not even close. Even if you put the Nintendo Switch 1 in there, the first 6 months, yes, I get The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I'll probably make a bigger video about this later, but overall, if you're looking at the amount of games, just look at the quality of the games when it comes to first and third party, from Mario Kart World to Donkey Kong Bonanza to everything else that's coming out, Metroid Prime for the rest of the year and everything. Plus, you've got stuff like Silksong. Plus, you actually got support from EA for people who like Madden. Plus, you've got stuff like Hades. You just got way more variety when it comes to the amount and the quality of third-party games, in addition to getting good first-party games as well. And I think that's the difference between Switch 1 and Switch 2. And games like Trails in the Sky first chapter, they were nowhere to be found on the Switch 1 in the first 6 months, to be honest. So it's one of those things that you had to wait for before like Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana came over to the Switch 1. So it was a while. So Switch 2, we're getting that from the beginning, so I love to see that. So what do you guys think about Trails in the Sky first chapter when it comes to the reviews, in addition to the sales, the debut sales so far? Let me know in the comment section below. But we are going to move on to some Dragon Quest news as well. Shout out to my man Stealth. He actually clipped a little bit of an interview, or quoted a little bit of an interview from Automation Media, where they talked about what's happening with Dragon Quest VII Reimagined and what's going to be happening potentially with other remakes. So Dragon Quest creator Yuji Horii hinted that more remakes are in the works, and why Dragon Quest VII is being remade before 4, 5, and 6. Quote, there are various projects in motion. It's just that 7 happened to get completed first. So this is something that I actually talked about a bit, but I wanted to go over it a little bit more because I found it very interesting, and I want to discuss some of the other projects when it comes to Dragon Quest. So some people are wondering, well, wait a minute. Dragon Quest 7 Reimagined, that's great. Dragon Quest 4, Dragon Quest 5, all that stuff, that's great. But what about Dragon Quest 12? And I kind of wanted to talk about that. What is happening with Dragon Quest 12? I felt that Dragon Quest 12 could come at the most recent Nintendo Direct, but it wasn't quite ready at this point. So maybe it's going to come at the next Nintendo Direct. But I do think that Nintendo is keen on having Dragon Quest announcements for Nintendo Directs going forward. So that's why I kind of wanted to talk about this again. I think that Dragon Quest 7 Reimagined was a fantastic remake announcement, and I think that it looks great, and I'm very happy for it. But I think that this could also be a little bit of a key of what they want to do with these remakes, or what they want to do announcing new Dragon Quest games. Don't be surprised if the next Nintendo Direct has another big bit for Dragon Quest, because I've counted down multiple Directs in a row, I think, where Dragon Quest is one of the games where they either start with it, or it's a centerpiece type of game, or it cuts right to it, right? Those are usually like one of the bigger announcements in Nintendo Directs. They usually don't put those like in the, okay, here's the, you know, quick lineup of games, and they go over like a number of games. It's always like a showcase or centerpiece type of game, and they've done that now with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake, Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D Remake. They did that with other Dragon Quest games in the past. They've done that a lot, and Dragon Quest 7 now too. So I would expect Dragon Quest 12, that one, to be a centerpiece game, almost like how they did Resident Evil. Resident Evil Requiem, then 7 and 8, how that was right near the end, right when everyone's kind of at the apex or peak of people looking to see what they're going to announce. I would expect Dragon Quest 12 to be one of those games in that same type of sense. So it's definitely looking good. If you're a Dragon Quest fan, a lot of stuff coming through. I'm a fan myself, so I can't wait to get my hands on some of these remakes, and of course, Dragon Quest 12. So what do you guys think overall about everything that we discussed here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.